Canada just spent $75 million on a TV ad to fight US tariffs, and it may have just cost them their entire auto industry. On October 14, the government of Ontario launched an anti-tariff TV ad using audio clips of former US President Ronald Reagan, and the campaign cost a staggering 75 million Canadian dollars, about 55 million USD.
The way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
When the ad aired nationally during an MLB game on October 20, it reached millions of Americans and immediately made waves south of the border. Within hours, President Trump blasted the ad on social media, calling it fake and accusing Canada of manipulating Reagan's legacy for political gain. Even the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation criticized the ad, saying it used selective audio and video from a 1987 radio address and misrepresented the former president's full comments. And they're right. Mostly. The ads were edited to make a point and to keep the length under 60 seconds. In fact, the original context was Reagan announcing temporary tariffs to place on Japanese imports. But in the original speech, the main point is still the same. The campaign didn't misrepresent Reagan's intentions. In fact, he spent most of the original speech explaining why protectionism usually harms a country's economy.
Imposing such tariffs or trade barriers and restrictions of any kind are steps that I am loath to take, and in a moment I'll mention the sound economic reasons for this.
Reagan made it clear to listeners that the Japanese tariffs were supposed to be a temporary exception, and that he was a proponent of free trade. Despite this, Trump wasn't pleased. In response to the stunt, he announced plans for an additional 10% tariff on Canadian imports. Further tariffs are just one more burden for Canadian workers already feeling the squeeze. In recent weeks, automakers like Stellantis and General Motors have moved, or at least announced plans to move, production out of Canada, relocating to US-based facilities like the one in Illinois. Cars are going to get more expensive for everyone. Ontario is losing thousands of jobs here, putting even more strain on an economy that's been stagnant for years. Back in March, Canada imposed a 25% retaliatory tariff on US imports. A month later, the federal government granted temporary exceptions to certain US American auto companies because they were building in Canada and creating Canadian jobs. But as these companies scale back their operations, they're no longer feeling as generous. This is just one example of the economic problems plaguing Canada. Since 2015, Canadian real GDP per capita has declined relative to the US, from 76% down to 68%. Overall, Canadian policies have felt reactionary. Lots of statements, but many Canadians feel like the government isn't doing anything substantial. Well, some decisions like the Reagan ad may boost popular opinion for now, they haven't done much to influence American policy or improve domestic conditions. The Canadian economy is suffering, and it's clear that whatever officials have been trying, it isn't working. With a new Liberal government now in power, Prime Minister Mark Carney faces the challenge of repairing years of serious mistakes and mismanaged investment. Carney does appear to be more pragmatic. While issues like tariffs are bogging down his economy, he is a proponent of big projects to stimulate the nation, while seeking economic allies overseas. But only time will tell if he can differentiate himself from his predecessor and whether his bets will pay off. For more Canadian, US, and worldwide news analysis, hit subscribe. And if you want to learn why so many people are outraged over Trump's latest pardon, you can watch the video on screen. Thanks for watching.